you gotta go to FlixPop Radio.
He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies close.
It's 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses.
FlixPop Radio.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
It's an inanimate fucking object.
You're an inanimate fucking object!
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North, general of the Felix Legions, loyal servant to the true emperor Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
FlixPop Radio.
Go ahead. Make my day.
So, welcome to the FlixPop Radio Movie Club podcast, your best source anywhere on, let's face it, anywhere in the world for the best movie talk each and every week, where we tackle a specific movie genre. We take it apart with our in-studio guest. I'm your host, Paul Bastante, and there's literally nowhere else in the world, and I mean nowhere, that I'd rather be right now than here in beautiful Kinnelon, New Jersey at Sausage Hut Studios. Behind the glass is Tony T. How are you, my friend?
How we doing there, Mr. Paul?
I'm doing good. For those at home listening, nothing really happens here in Kinnelon or the FlixPop Radio Movie Club podcast without Tony T. He's working his magic, pressing those buttons, getting everything ready for us. And the studio looks beautiful, Tony. Great job.
Why, thank you very much.
Well, you're very welcome. And I want to say also your gig a couple weeks ago for your birthday was fantastic. You played well.
Oh, thank you.
A great list of guests. We had Rob Matarazzo there, right? We had Worthington, and we had, who else we have over there? It was unbelievable.
Keith Woodward. There was a whole cast of characters from Hansel's out that night.
That was awesome. Rob, you got to come to our next one and perform as well.
We're doing it again on March 15th at Barty's. Plug.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, we're there for that. We have a great show planned today. Today, in the FlixPop studio is the author of Autism Dad, Becker Comes Alive, Hangman's Jam. We're going to talk a little Hangman's Jam later. A series, and his book, Autism Dad, is really about a series of books about his experience as the dad of an autistic son. He's also the author, like I said, of Becker Comes Alive, which is an unbelievable story. I'd like to welcome to the show author and musician, Rob Errera. How are you today, my friend?
Thanks, Paul. And Tony T. I'm doing great.
Excellent. It's great to have you.
Fantastic. Glad to be back in the FlixPop world.
The FlixPop universe.
The FlixPop universe.
Except in this universe,
yes.
We can swear. We can talk about questionable subject matter,
really?
Willy-nilly.
Well,
you could take
it won't make me uncomfortable.
No, absolutely not. But I did take a 200 milligram gummy before we got on. So,
oh my gosh.
So the show is 420 friendly, and hopefully you partook before you got on the show. Because we're talking zombie apocalypse here. So
it's hard to go into a zombie
pregame the right way.
Apocalypse unprepared. Yeah, so you want to be prepared mentally and physically.
So we're going to discuss today's featured genre, which is the zombie apocalypse film genre. We're going to also play the yes, no, either or game with Rob and Tony T. We're going to try to reach out and reach our consensus top 5 of all time with the movies in the genre. And then we'll do all this today. But first, just our sponsors, FlixPop Radio Movie Club podcast, brought to you by Rebecca Eckert, estate planning attorney, Officially Social, Silk City Films, the FlixPop Radio Show on WGHT and WTBQ, the Reset with Stephanie Shore podcast, as well as Tony T's Roadshow podcast. That's coming down the pike, Rob. You're gonna want to check this out. Tony T's Road. The podcast is about the local music scene here in North Jersey, which you and I are both kind of intimately familiar, having grown up in it. So, can we play a game together?
I suppose we can.
All right, awesome. So
I don't want to be a difficult guest, but I don't
have to play, Rob.
I know you, Paul, and I know your kind of games, and they get a little creepy sometimes. But as long as it's going to be something safe, for me and my well-being. I'm sure
I
it'll
can
be
only promise a few things that
Yeah.
no laws will be broken while we do this exercise, and
Okay.
that also there'll be no harming of any animals or
Good,
pets.
yeah.
Okay,
Right,
so
that's cool.
even though we may discuss Pet Cemetery a little bit,
Okay, sure.
when there was harming of animals,
You know
in
what?
that film,
And that is a very interesting addition to the zombie genre, right? The Pet Cemetery,
Yeah.
where you have zombie pets coming back. You don't
Yeah.
get that as much.
well, people were like, "Are you going to include that?" I'm like, "You have to include that, right?"
You kind of have to. And I have some actual honorable mentions on my zombie list that are what I would consider zombie adjacent. You know, they're maybe not directly in the zombie genre.
Right.
Like, for instance,
Okay.
Evil Dead
Yes,
from
love it.
81.
Love it. Mhm.
We all love the Evil Dead. And it has kind of possessed bodies, rotting bodies, but it's not a true zombie film. It's more of a demonic possession film.
But by 1981,
Yeah.
we've turned the corner in this genre. Even when like Night of the Living Dead, Romero's Night of the Living Dead 1968 comes out, they didn't even refer to the monsters or whatever you want to call
Right.
them in the movie as zombies.
They were ghouls.
They were like ghouls, right?
Flesh-eating ghouls.
Flesh-eating ghouls, and then like along the way, some they stopped eating flesh, and some zombies were had a proclivity just for brains, right?
Right.
Right.
And
So
that was in like Return of the Living Dead.
Return of the
right?
Living Dead, right?
Sure.
So, that being here nor there, yes, nor either or brings us the opportunity to learn a little bit more each week about our in studio guest, you, Rob.
Oh, that's me.
That's you. So I'm going to ask Rob a series of rapid fire questions that will require a yes or no or an either or response. Tony T, let's do an example. All right.
Alrighty, Paul.
All right, man. Mayo on French fries, yes or no?
No, man. No, not for this cowboy.
Sushi, yes or no?
Yeah.
What's your favorite sushi?
I dig a nice little California roll, maybe. you know.
Okay. All right. Well, it's kind of safe, and this is a zombie apocalypse genre, so that's not going to go. Bing, bing. Going to throw a flag on that? Okay. Ever lie about your birthday to receive a free dessert at the restaurant?
No, man. No. Not for this.
Tony T's too low key for that?
Yeah, man.
All right. Everybody on board with this?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yes, no, either or is brought to you today by Silk City Films and the book, Becker Comes Alive.
Excellent book.
By
Everyone
Robert
should read
Errera.
that.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Today's category is...
Horror apocalyptic movies.
Okay, you ready to play, Rob?
I'm ready.
All right, everyone, please place your trays in the upright position and prepare for impact. I Am Legend
Yes.
or 28 Days Later?
Well, thanks for having me tonight. No, actually, I would have to say 28 Days Later is more of a genre-changing movie.
Sure.
In that it introduced the fast zombie. But I got to say, I Am Legend, if I may be so bold, has been filmed none other than at least 3 times.
Yes.
Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price was
Way back when.
Way back when. Then you had the Omega Man, I believe, with Charlton Heston in the 70s.
Yes.
And then, of course, I Am Legend with Will Smith. Basically all adaptations of Richard Matheson's story about being the last man on Earth. Again, influential story. Can't go wrong with Richard Matheson. He also wrote The Incredible Shrinking Man and a bunch of other amazing things.
Great movie.
Yep.
How about you, Tony T? Which one? I Am Legend or 28 Days Later?
I got to go with the legend, man.
Okay, yeah. I liked it too.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, Rob. You mentioned that there's 3 different remakes of it, makings of the movie. Personally, I like check out like when I look at like black and white movies. I'm like, for some reason I cannot digest them in my feeble mind, so they don't like have a great impact on me.
All right.
And I just recently watched I Am Legend, and it's great. It's a great movie, right? Great movie. Okay, next one, 1968 Romero, Night of the Living Dead. I hate to do this to you, or the 1978 Dawn of the Dead. I think I know the answer.
I gotta go with the original Night of the Living Dead.
Is that because it busts the genre and really puts it on the map?
Yeah. And because it really, it was more than just a film that changed the horror genre. It really was a film that captured the turbulence of 1968 as a time. I mean, in America, things were really socially upheaval. The war was raging. Plus, I think if you look at Night of the Living Dead, it almost has like a grainy newsreel look to it.
Sure.
Like it's one of those news footages coming from Vietnam, which we had never really seen before as a nation, like color footage of bloody war photos coming back home. And I think that Night of the Living Dead kind of captured that turbulence of the generation.
Do you ever find, like, in this genre, more than, I don't know, really any other genre, that the zombies that we see, right, they kind of, like, are a reflection of the times that are happening, like, at that time, you know? I feel like a lot of these, like, directors, that's how they actually make these sometimes, right? They want to make us look at ourselves in the zombies.
Horror always spikes. Horror movies and films and books, they always seem to spike when there's turbulent political times.
Absolutely.
So we should be seeing a lot more coming in the next few years.
All right, we don't need to talk about that. Zombieland or Shaun of the Dead?
I'm going to go with Shaun of the Dead on that one.
No, a lot of people that when I start talking to them about the genre, because, you know, they stop me in the street now, Rob.
Yes,
I am in the supermarket and I have, like, you know, 45-year-old moms and they're asking me, you know, who's on your show this week, right? And I'm like running. I'm like signing autographs. It's ridiculous.
It's hard. You're like the Beatles.
It's you know what I'm saying? It's like the British Invasion and like Tony T's Roadshow at Barty's on like a Saturday in February.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, Shaun of the Dead, a lot of the people that I talk to, they all put it in like their top 5. Have that kind of impact for you?
No.
Okay.
It was fun. It's a fun movie. I love it.
Right.
But I have another movie that's similar fun zombie movie that I like more than Shaun of the Dead. Which, you know what? Before we get too far into it, let me bring it back to Night of the Living Dead.
Let's do it.
Because, you know, I wrote this book about John Becker. Becker Comes Alive, available on Amazon or anywhere you get a book.
Go get it, folks. Yes.
Yeah, wherever you can get a book. You can get this book. And John Becker was a local boy, Jersey drummer, who lived in Riverdale. He hooked up with another friend of his, Ronnie Lane, and they started this band, the Del Airs, in the early 60s.
He was a drummer.
He was a drummer. And they played a lot of surf rock kind of music.
For this expedition, climbing, baby, oh my, oh why I should get somewhere to see how it feels to fly.
Ruined his career, that whole stuff.
Well, they played a lot of surf rock, and they played a lot of Elvis covers, and they played, you know, they were a pretty good band. They got a break in 1963 where they got to be the band in this movie called The Horror of Party Beach. Now, The Horror of Party Beach was a terrible movie. It's gone on to be on critics' lists as one of the worst movies ever made.
That's hard to do.
It is hard to do because there are some really bad movies out there. But he was in The Horror of Party Beach. Now, The Horror of Party Beach, again, was shot in the summer of 63, released the following summer of 64. To me, the world kind of changed after the summer of 63. You figure President Kennedy was shot in November of that year. You had Martin Luther King killed the following April of 64. So, you know, it was a different kind of world, and I think the youth of the time was looking for a different type of entertainment, something that was a little more honest. That's why things like Bob Dylan probably became so popular, and the folk artists who were kind of carrying this truthful message of the time. And so anyway, John was in this terrible movie, and I think this terrible movie inspired George Romero to make Night of the Living Dead. And I'll tell you how this is happening. So if you watch this terrible movie, Horror of Party Beach.
Can I see this movie somewhere?
Oh, you could see it on YouTube or Tubi. It's pretty widely available.
Text me the name and I want to go watch it.
The
I gotta
Horror
watch it.
of Party Beach, right?
Okay.
Now, it's a bad movie with a really bad monster. But one of the things that happens in this movie is radioactive waste is poured into the ocean.
That happens all the time.
And it brings some kind of creature out of the bottom of the sea, right? Now, one of the people says, it's a zombie. It's reanimated. It's a reanimated corpse. Now, one of the songs...
He actually said it's a zombie.
It's a zombie.
Okay.
In The Horror of Party Beach.
Okay.
And The one of the songs that the Del Airs play is called the Zombie Stomp.
Oh, everybody do the zombie stomp. You slam your foot down with an awful pump. You reach out further, further. Step me closer, step me closer.
There were a number of other groovy, beachy tunes, but with the Zombie Stomp and this idea that the movie poster for the Horror of Party Beach promised weird atomic creatures who feed off human blood. But you never really saw that in the movie. It kind of promised it on the movie poster, but it never really happened. Now imagine, it's 1964. George Romero is working on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood broadcast outside of Pittsburgh, him and his crew. And he wants to make his own movie. And he's trying to get some funding together for a movie. Imagine, he sees the Horror of Party Beach, walks out of it, sees his movie poster that says, these creatures never fed off of blood and human flesh, and this movie stinks. I can make a better movie than this. And I think it may have inspired him. Maybe in the dust of his brain, the Zombie Stomp, John Becker's Zombie Stomp, was still there.
Baby, baby, don't be scared, 'cause I'm standing here looking kind of weird. There ain't no cause to be afraid.
I think a few years later, he got the funding together to make his movie, and he made almost the anti-movie of the Horror of Party Beach. There's no goofy beach tunes. There's no surf stuff. There's only creepy synthesizer music and stark black and white photography that looks like almost war footage, like I said, instead of this happy beach kind of frolicking, frivolous thing that the beach party was. And I think it turned the genre around.
I think that's like really interesting that you say that. I didn't know that story. I'd never heard it from you.
Art
if you think
builds
about
on
it,
art.
Right? But now we talked about earlier in the show, that in 1968, before Night of the Living Dead, and in Night of the Living Dead and Romero's Night of the Living Dead, they didn't refer to them as zombies.
No, they were ghouls.
So therefore, in Horror at Party Beach,
they
you
did
could
say
and they said zombies.
Yes.
Okay, so really, there had to be some thought of that monster type, that archetype monster.
The zombie who comes back from the dead.
Yes.
Possibly through radiation.
Yes.
I think in Night of the Living
Science
Dead.
fiction.
Science fiction
Yes,
comes in
okay.
there. I think in Night of the Living Dead, there was a vague reference to a comet going over that somehow caused the dead to rise from their
It's always
graves.
something.
It's always something.
Yeah.
And they loved using the radiation as a catalyst.
Yeah, if you stick your head in the microwave, this is what you come out looking like.
Well,
That's
you figure we dropped this horrible atomic bomb in 45,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the world after that was like, wow, look at the power of this radiation, and it led to Godzilla and them and all these other giant bug movies where they were mutated by radiation. So there's a little bit of radiation mutation in the Horror of Party Beach, but
there's some song lyrics there, Rob.
There's the bones of a zombie film there. I'm telling you.
We got to come together and write a zombie song. We're going to do that.
I would do that.
All right.
Falling Apart.
All right. Pet Cemetery, yes or no?
I'm going to go I'm going to go yes on that.
Okay. War of the Worlds or World War Z? Easy for me to say. So before you answer that,
all right.
World War Z, right?
Yes.
I saw that movie. To me, that was the new zombie.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
these
a fast
guys are
movie.
lightning fast, right?
Yep, multiplying a lot.
And they multiply so fast.
Yeah.
And they absolutely move in a mob type of...
Yeah.
Like they move over each other and stuff like that. What's that all about?
I think that's actually fascinating that they almost move as like an insect swarm.
Or like a bird flock.
Or a bird. They call that like mermation when they all kind of like turn in as one.
Yes.
And it's like that. It is kind of very cool when you see zombies that kind of have a groupthink mind to them, because then they're even scarier.
No, what could be worse than zombies poking your eye out with splinters? How about a flock of zombies poking your eyes out with splinters?
Well, I think we all know, Paul, that a group of zombies is called a horde, not a flock. Come on, man.
Okay, I got it. You know what? I gotta up my game.
Sorry,
okay,
dude.
here's a very interesting. I'm going to give you two that are. The first one's extremely underrated in my mind, and the second one's not a movie at all. It's a TV series.
All right,
but you know what? It's very important in the genre. Train to Busan Okay, the Korean. Now they say that's
Yeah.
an excellent movie and
Yes.
the Walking Dead TV series.
All right. You're asking tough questions now, and I like it. I like
Come on,
it.
what do you think? This is
You
topical?
lost me on the first one, man.
So Train to Busan.
Train
so
to Busan. To give you a spoiler, that is one of my top 5 favorite zombie
yeah,
movies.
man, yeah. It's
Train
very
to
underrated,
Busan.
Tony.
Wow,
Very, very
sorry, guys.
underrated, man.
No, you know what? You know what, Tone? They're going to wind up making the Train to Burbank, and they'll make some terrible American version of this movie. I'm
Yes.
surprised they haven't already.
I believe you.
But the South Korean version of this movie is great.
Yeah.
That movie has so much heart to it, and now that's the
And it
thing
looks good, too.
It looks great. That's another fast zombies.
Yeah.
You know what? The reason I was watching a special about Train to Busan, which is actually a little peninsula at the end of South Korea. So it would be like for us, it would be like the train to Key West or something, like some last point on our livable island. So yes, but one of the things that makes that movie interesting is they really did a lot of work with the actors, how they move their bodies. So it's not really as focused on like practical effects, rotting flesh, and that thing. It's more about these very strange, inhuman body movements that the actors that portray the zombies have, and it's very shocking. And it's and they move fast, and it's a good action movie. But it's also got a family heart. And you know, these zombie movies, Paul, they always seem to have some kind of like scene where there has to be a parting. There has to be some kind of sad goodbye. Somebody gets bit and they have to depart. And there's a very great end scene in that movie that kind of really shows that. And, you know, it almost brings a tear to your eye. It's so moving, which you don't normally have in zombie films.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Train to Busan's excellent. However, and I'm not gonna take it off my list. The Walking Dead, that kind of really shaped things too. Now, here's in my opinion what happened. It's a lot of people's opinion, but between 2002 and 2003, you had the release of 28 Days Later, which was a different kind of zombie movie.
Yes, it was.
You had the release of Robert Kirkman's Walking Dead comics, which really had a whole new revitalization of the genre. And you had a book by a friend of mine, author Brian Keene, called The Rising, which was another father and son zombie story where, zombie apocalypse breaks out and the father wants to get back to rescue his son who's 3 states away. These 3 things in conjunction with each other all around 2002, 2003 really breathed new life into the genre. And you started seeing all kinds of zombie things after that. Again, the Dawn of the Dead remake, and it was Zack Snyder's remake, and came out in 2004, I think. And then you got the Walking Dead TV show, which I got to say, the first 2 seasons of The Walking Dead, they're excellent.
They're unbelievable.
And the practical effects, I mean, you and I have been friends for a long time. We used to watch creepy monster movies as teenagers.
And then we used to say to each other, how can it ever get better than this? Right? Remember that?
And it really hasn't. I'm
yeah.
still watching the creepy monster movies. And it's
Well,
awesome.
you're a different dude. I think that people, unlike you, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you're very paying attention. You're an artist and everything. I think people, when they saw The Walking Dead, it was
Right.
almost like listening to like Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, right? And then now,
Yeah.
and now instead from that point on, you're looking backwards.
Yeah.
So
Right,
this is
right.
almost like binge worthy in and of itself. Like, it's a binge inside of
Right.
a binge sometimes when you think about these things, because the people who saw The Walking Dead, they had no idea about Romero's Night of the Living Dead,
Sure.
right?
They were not they were not ready for that level of gore.
It was
quite
the first
frankly.
one for them.
Yes. And, like, I guess my point is when we were kids, we had to hunt out our gore. We had to
Sure.
go to video stores and, look for weird Italian zombie movies to get bloody special effects. Suddenly, Walking Dead brought this to the masses. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. I think it did kind of desensitize people. I think it was kind of fun when we were young and we had to work to find our gore and our porn and things like that. Now everything's right there at our fingertips.
Yes.
And, you always got to work for something that's worth it, right? If you don't have to work for it, then I don't know.
We're gonna get into a little bit more with that. You bring up the porn. And we're going to talk about your time at Cherry Magazine.
Oh, okay.
Cherry Magazine, I think it's an awesome story. But now, I thank you for playing the game with me because I feel like that gives our audience like a little bit of insight into your mind. So we actually know
I kept interrupting your game.
No,
I
kept interrupting you, and it's okay. This is the really cool thing about this podcast. For those that don't know, we have FlixPop Radio. It's a weekly radio show on Saturday mornings from 9 to 10. It's awesome. We talk about movie genres, but this podcast, right? I'm so psyched for it because we are doing right now what we weren't able to do on the fucking radio show.
I
right?
see. Use that kind of language.
Like I could drop an F-bomb if I want. I could, wink or, get on the air.
True. Talk about your gummy use.
Yeah, while I'm under the influence of a 200 milligram gummy of some sort.
Do you have a zombie go bag in case a zombie apocalypse breaks out or anything?
Remember a couple of weeks back, maybe a couple of months back, maybe around the new year.
All right.
Everybody couldn't go anywhere without seeing like a drone in the sky. Remember the drone days, the good old drone days? So like during the drone days, first of all, I still have not been able to confirm that there was any actual drone. Like for all the stuff that was said about drones, I never seen one. I never was able to say
it was me. It was me, by the way.
It was all Tony T.
I did it all.
You were flying them every night from your port in the sea.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, and it's while that was going on, I had to contemplate what were the reasons for this going on. So there were I had three real scenarios that it could have been. The first one being actual aliens.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
So like
we all thought, who knows?
Well, I mean, I wasn't worried about that because like we have drones too.
Sure.
So like if that's all they have is the drones and they don't have some unbelievably wicked wizardry type of like.
But you weren't worried there was some advanced
technology that we couldn't defeat or anything. So that didn't worry me. The second possibility, which is really the most terrifying one, was like some type of a foreign entity spying on us, a China, a Russia, North Korea, whatever.
So those Canadians, Paul.
Yeah, right. Come on.
The 51st state.
The 51st state.
Anyway.
All right, listen. That's a whole other issue.
All right.
We're gonna. I mean, if you want to talk about that, we could talk about.
Is that the Gulf of Canada?
The Gulf of Canada.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen. You asked me. And do I have a zombie bag? I have a bag for like all the damn stuff that's going on out there. Like I'm pretty worried about.
So what was the third scenario?
The third scenario is nothing.
Okay,
it's absolutely nothing.
Which is
like a big nothing burger.
Which is what our government tells us it was, and we should just believe
Tony
that.
T, big nothing burger, right?
Hey man, everybody believes what they tell them, right?
Well, so you know what the funny thing is? Even today, I saw somebody on social media. And they were like touting the picture they took over their house. Of course, it's a drone, right? And you look at the picture and you're like, it's an airplane.
Right.
Right?
All right.
So I know, and I myself, I was guilty. I'm like walking around outside.
Yeah.
It was almost like the Pokemon stuff. Remember the Pokemon phase?
Yeah.
People are walking around like looking at like imaginary Pokemon.
Right,
I'm like walking around and I'm like looking up at the sky like everywhere I go. That was the weirdest.
It was
the weirdest shit ever.
It was kind of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds type thing where he had like that radio broadcast and everybody was like, "There's really aliens."
Yeah,
and they were like shooting at water towers and whatnot.
But if we're like just being honest with each other, Tony T, like we're just being honest with each other. I think that it's probably smart to like have a plan, like on the drop.
I think having a go bag is good
because I feel I'm like I'm a huge like pussy with this stuff. I feel like like if I walk in like a movie
You're
theater,
a former Navy man.
I am, but you know what though? Like I always sit with my back to like the wall.
All right. Are you smart?
I always
like
I'm looking
Be
around
careful.
like, okay, what happens if a fire happens?
Sure.
What's my best way out of this place? Like I don't want to be like considering these things like while the crisis is happening. You know what I mean? So
right.
So but I feel like right now, even though I might not have my thumb on it, like there's something weird is going on.
Yeah.
It's like every like last a bastion of society. Tony, give me a segment of society that is not affected by the absolute weirdness going on.
Yeah, man. You just got to kind of sit back and enjoy the show. Right?
Maybe,
I guess so.
I'd say the horror community, but even they reflect it in their horrible movies. You know what I mean?
Does it worry you?
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
Do you have a zombie bag? Do you have a zombie bag?
No, man.
Is a zombie bag a thing?
I was thinking like I think it is a thing.
Is it
I'm going to defend it as a thing, even though
like if I went to somebody,
like a go bag.
So if I went into one of these women in the supermarket
Yeah.
next week and they asked me about it, like, are they going to know what I'm talking about?
If you
like,
ask
if I
them for a
asked them,
zombie
do you
bag?
have a zombie bag or whatever?
They would probably think it's like a Fendi knockoff or like a Prada bag or something.
Yeah. That's right. The zombie wears Prada.
The zombie bag.
Yes. All right.
The
So
zombie wears Prada.
all right.
That's
so
a good one, dude.
I got to transition. I got to pay a couple of bills. Got a question
All right,
for
no
you,
problem.
Rob. Are your life documents in order?
My life documents could be better, Paul. What can I do about it?
What about you, Tony T? Like, are your life documents in order? You get your will together and everything?
Let's just say I'm a little behind schedule.
A little behind schedule.
Yeah.
Okay, so every time I like ask this question, it brings the thought to mind. Like, if the worst were to happen, would your family struggle to put the pieces back together, or would they have peace of mind because you planned ahead and you called a state attorney, Rebecca Eckert, my friend? She's great. She charges a flat rate for wills, for advance directives, for powers of attorney, revocable trusts, and more. And one more thing, Rob, too. We talk about your books, Autism Dad.
Yes.
And there's a thing when you talk about having special needs,
Yes.
children. There are things.
Yeah, like a special needs trust.
Exactly. Well, Rebecca handles all those things.
That stuff's really important.
It
when
is
you have a
very,
special
very
needs kid. Yeah.
It's very important. I'm going to put you in touch with her.
Thank you.
Not only that, she's the absolute best in the business, and your initial consultation is always free. Visit her today at rleckert.com, rleckert.com. Okay, so Rob, I wanted to talk to you about some other things.
All right.
Let's get right to it. If I could find my way here.
It's cool.
In terms of like,
But I'm still going to talk a little bit about zombies.
listen, this is all about zombies. Okay, because like what I want to know from you, and I've assembled a list, and Tony T, feel free to pop in on any of these points. When you talk about a zombie apocalypse movie or the zombie apocalypse genre, they have a certain amount of certain elements that are used in them, and certain tricks. Like we talked last week with somebody about like Jaws.
Yeah.
And then the reason why they came up with like the two notes to let the viewer know that the shark was there without actually having to show the shark.
Sure.
Because Spielberg is having like such an awful time with like the mechanical sharks.
Right. So they just kind of had that musical cue.
They just had the dun, dun, which
Yeah.
you know the notes?
No, it's on
E and F.
All right.
Okay, you hear E and F, and it doesn't matter what you're doing, right?
Right.
You hear
No.
those two notes together, even
Yes.
by accident, and you're thinking great white shark, all right, and smile. You son of
Especially
a
if they're
bitch,
on the
right?
nice low viola or bass.
That's right. Like that. Yes, no doubt about it. All right, let's get back to the zombie thing now.
All right.
Ensemble cast.
Ensemble cast is the first one. That's
Yes.
the element that they use all the time, right? It's like the majority of zombie films, they have this, gives them like more characters to like be able to have like bumped off as like the narrative progresses along.
You got to have someone to eat. In the
You know what
zombie
I'm saying,
film,
right?
so
There's
yeah.
got to be like fuel for the zombies, right?
Exactly. They
and
get
that-
hungry.
And that's the ensemble cast. So like examples of this kind of ensemble cast are like Shaun of the Dead.
Yep.
Or like even like Army of the Dead.
Oh, yeah,
is,
for sure.
Is another one. We didn't talk about that one yet, but those are kind of examples of that. And when they follow, they also, I guess, serve to like tell the story of individual people as they follow them through like their zombie purging like journey along the way.
Sure. It's always you put these typical characters into an extraordinary situation and see how they react.
That's correct.
So you usually have someone who maybe has some medical expertise in the group. You usually have some kind of leader who's maybe an ex-cop or
Somebody
something in
morally
the group.
challenged, right?
Right.
Like
you get somebody who's
a drug addict.
Or, a druggie, or somebody's looking for some redemption, or somebody whatever. Even in the original, Romero's original Night of the Living Dead, that was an ensemble cast, and that cast was. The funny thing is he was trying to gather funds for his film, and I think most of the people who are in that movie are producers on it because they threw in a grand to make it made or whatever.
Who wasn't in the film?
Exactly. So, again, a lot of those people were financial contributors to the movie, so that's why they were in the ensemble.
Sure, we do that all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, got to get your stuff funded and just hand out cameo roles.
And you need right, exactly. You need a big name in there if you can get
Sure.
Who was Woody Harrelson was in Zombieland.
Oh yeah.
And you had a cameo. Bill Murray, which was great. You know.
Yeah.
So
all right. So the
yes.
second one,
Science fiction.
the incorporation of science fiction, like zombie movies are like really rife with like opportunities to like cross genres, right?
Sure.
They pull elements from this film type and
Someone's
that
got to
film
bring the
type.
dead back to life.
Right. So, but it's always,
Right.
I think it works with zombie films because,
They
you know,
almo- yeah.
it's like, it's got to be explained. Like,
Sure.
what happened to the monsters?
Right. Like how did these dead bodies reanimate and come crawling out of the grave?
Sure.
And why do they want to eat people?
And is that the
Yeah.
key to overcoming them, like in World War Z? Mm-hmm. Right,
Oh,
where they figure out
Yes.
by that way. But again,
Yeah.
science fiction.
Exactly. And World War Z is a good one where they actually have like the science and they find a cure or some kind of way to combat the zombies. The thing I didn't like about that ending is I thought it was too simple. There was
Too clean.
There was another movie that I love called Day of the Triffids from the 60s. And it's about this meteor storm that happens over England, and all these bright lights are happening in the sky. Everybody watches it, and then the next day, everybody goes blind and then the day after that, these weird triffid plants start growing out of the ground that are like kind of these alien creatures. And they're versus all these blind people, so it's kind of amazing.
I could see you like piling popcorn like while you're watching.
Oh, yeah.
this. You specifically.
Me
I'm
specifically?
talking-
Oh, yeah.
As you talk about it, your eyes
day-
are like they're lit up.
Oh, I love it. The Day of the Triffids. It's an awesome movie, except the problem with the Day of the Triffids is, we found out we could defeat them with seawater.
Oh.
It's like, well, wait a minute.
That's
why did the
80% of the
Earth? Why did they come here where 80% of the planet is covered with something that destroys them? So, hey, you know what?
That's dumb.
You got to suspend your disbelief in these films. You know, that's the whole
Well, that's
point.
Hollywood. That's Hollywood.
That's,
but, okay, so how about
Jump scares.
horror films? They come in many different
do.
shapes and sizes. You know,
Yeah.
slashers, folk, body horror, found footage
Yep.
trope. How about jump scares and like the impact they play in the genre?
Yeah, well, you gotta love a jump. Well, I would say most people associate a jump scare and love a jump scare, and I do too.
Isn't it metaphysical?
It's kind of where you're like, hey,
Do you make that weird sound? Like stuff like that.
and they grab the person next to you, like, hey.
Yeah. People
But-
have been injured in movie theaters during the jump scares. And
Exactly.
people have actually had strokes and heart attacks too.
They have.
I don't really know that. I'm
Yes.
just making it up. Go ahead.
I
Sorry.
think they might. I think during a Terrifier 3, I heard there were some people having some health issues.
Right.
But jump scare. You know, you gotta love a good jump scare. They're very effective. I actually kind of like, I love a slow burn scare too, where you're kind of building up to something. Like, for instance, I hate to keep bringing up Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, it's a classic.
But it's a classic,
Yeah.
and we're talking zombies. One of to me, the scariest part of that is that you have this dying child in the basement. And it's kind of like known throughout the movie, like, yeah, this girl in the basement's not doing so good. They go down and check on her. She has one line, I hurt. So and she's dying. And then, the next thing you know, the mother's down there with her, and the dead little girl comes back to life and gets a spade and starts hacking away at mom. And, so in that, you could see it coming. You were like, the girl's sick. She's getting worse.
Yeah, right.
Now she's dead. Now the mom's locked herself in the basement with the dead girl. You knew it was coming, so you knew it was going to happen.
And you still chipped a tooth,
yeah,
right?
you
when it
still
happened.
because you still felt like it was almost like a car accident in slow motion. Like, oh no!
Isn't that though really when you boil it down
Yeah.
to the most basic stuff of what we enjoy about movies is sometimes
Yeah.
that they can move us in ways that we can't be moved in like our regular normal
Oh,
life
yeah.
outside of like a horrific car wreck or something.
Sure.
And it's only for the price of admission, $15. But
Yeah.
jump scares are a big thing. How about so this is another like huge one. Like as I'm doing the research for like
Yeah.
this genre,
The homage.
I never seen any other genre of movies, maybe comedy type
Okay,
movies,
yeah, yeah.
maybe, but where there's so many different clues and nods to past genres and
Yeah,
tropes and things like that. Zombie films are a lot of fun, classic examples to come over through the decades. But zombie films in particular, they're notable about how much they borrow from one another. So
Yeah.
while we can find plenty of them from the 30s and 40s,
Yes.
the birth of the modern zombie genre comes from the films of George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, 1968, that we
Right.
talked about, and then 10 years later,
Yes.
Dawn of the Dead.
Let me talk to you.
Give it to me.
Let me
yeah.
just say something about those old school zombies.
Yeah.
The old school zombie was like a Haitian voodoo zombie.
Yeah.
Which,
Let's talk about the origin.
Which kind of came from, again, from the island of Haiti, where there were, again, back in the day, there were slaves there. The slaves were literally worked to death in the sugarcane fields. And the nightmare of a slave would be if they died and were forced to come back and still work in the sugarcane fields. That was the zombie nightmare, was a slave's nightmare of always being beholden to a master, even after death. That kind of changed with Romero and a little bit with my friend John Becker's movie, The Horror of Party Beach, where they talk about zombies. Something
they started the
coming
genre.
back.
They started it.
I think John Becker started it.
That's it.
Becker
Your
comes
neighbor.
alive.
Your neighbor.
John Becker comes alive.
Guy's
available
responsible
at
for the
Amazon.
zombie genre.
We got to get him up here.
Yeah.
I think so. Well, he's no longer with
No,
us.
he's
unfortunately.
passed away.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. But I got to say, he was, I think in a certain way, he was responsible.
Yeah.
He did have a little part.
Yeah.
It might have just been a little echo of a drum beat in George Romero's mind, or John Russo, who was helping him write Night of the Living Dead. But, yeah, I think art builds on art, and I think you do see those homages to the old films in the new films. And again, you started with those zombies, White Zombie, Bela Lugosi in the 30s, and they were all kind of, again, more of a voodoo. There was one person brought back from the dead to be like a henchman for a master. Romero took it in 68 and made it, hey, we're just having a mass rising of dead people, and they're going to come back and eat the living, which in and of itself is our own past, Paul, coming back for us.
Yes.
It's our own, and from the basement scene, we see it's our own flesh and blood coming back to our own pasts, coming back to eat us. So that was like a huge thematic change, from a one-person assaulter to like an existential threat of like our own past coming back to get us. And so you'd see a lot of that.
And also the titles, like Of the Dead, right? The
Dead.
sub of the Dead, right?
Shaun of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead,
yeah,
right?
all of those things.
Museum of the Dead.
But it also goes further. There's just names and titles, though. Like zombie movies over the decades, they've left like subtle references and thematic like homages for like zombie fans to see that they could catch and enjoy. Like we talked about,
right?
That one where like the splinter comes and like pokes the eye out.
Yeah, that was in Lucio Fulci's Zombie.
Yeah.
Zombie 2,
right?
Which there's some great. That he was an Italian filmmaker in the 70s,
right.
And you could definitely see where he called his film Zombie 2 because he wanted it to be considered a sequel to Night of the Living Dead. This was because he had no rights to it, and he couldn't make. And Romero was already making Dawn of the Dead, so he called it Zombie 2 as an homage to Night of the Living Dead. And there's a great scene where there's a zombie pulls her through a door and pokes her eye out with a splinter, and you can. It's terrible. It's a great effect.
That's awful.
It is awful, but part of practical effects are part of what you go to these movies to see, right? You see.
If you had your choice, though,
yes,
of how to die in a zombie movie, like
right.
what would your choice be? Like what would it be? What kind of homage death would you have?
You know what? There's a great death in Day of the Dead, which is Romero's third movie in the zombie, series. And there's this military guy who's getting attacked by zombies, and they rip his legs off. And he's like, I hope you choke on him. I hope you choke on him. And it's so it was good. The guy was feisty till the end.
You had your choice. You'd like to have your legs basically ripped off.
And I'd like to
give the zombie like a piece of your mind as he's like chowing
I'd like to
on
be
your
feisty
limbs.
about it to my last breath. Yeah, absolutely.
That's such a twisted way to spend our time. I'll just say that right off the bat.
Infected by zombies.
All right. One of the other ones is the zombie infectee trope.
Yes.
Where sooner or later someone like in the ensemble is going to be infected.
Yeah.
Sometimes these characters they try and hide their infection. Sometimes they don't.
Right.
The infectee more often than not realizes that he or she has become infected and
right.
is probably doomed.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the moral question. Should I hide it? Should I acknowledge it?
Right.
If they do, how do they do it? What are the dynamics? And like you mentioned before. is there's always invariably that goodbye moment,
right?
Where it's your father or your sister or your brother or something.
Yep.
They jumped in front of the zombie and saved your life, but you know what?
Yeah,
they got
now
their
they
pinky
got
bitten
bit.
off. And they know they're infected, and maybe if you chop the arm off right then and there, you can have a happy ending.
Chopping off an arm is always good.
Yeah,
yeah.
I say that too.
I agree.
Chopping stuff off. Like I'd rather have that than nothing.
You gotta try it, but it doesn't always work with the chopping things off.
Right.
Sometimes it just gets in the blood and it's quick.
Right, and then you end up chopping stuff off for no reason.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's funny.
That's like that's even a worse death than the whole eye splinter thing.
It is. Now, you don't really get that as much in the original Night.
Right.
You get original Night of the Living Dead. You do have Barbara and Johnny. Here were the two people at the beginning. And Johnny's like, they're coming for you, Barbara.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Stop it. You're ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
And she's like, Johnny,
Good
stop.
Quote. Good quote.
They're coming for you, Barbara. That's one of the best.
Oh, it's one of the best.
And then at the end of the film, Johnny does, in fact, come back for her in zombie form while she's pretty much having a meltdown. So,
oh, boy.
And it's that's the thing. It's like there's maybe not that goodbye moment in the original Night of the Living Dead, but there's certainly that hello moment. Like, hi, I've come home and I'm a different person now who wants to eat you. There's a really good moment in
this is twisted shit
in Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead 2004 remake. Right? Talk about a jump scare. There's a great scene where in the beginning of that movie where they see one of their young neighbor little girl is at the end of their hallway and they wake up. And she's like, what's up, Sarah, or whatever her name is. And Sarah turns around, and she's got blood face, and she's been eating her parents, and she comes dashing fast towards the bedroom door.
Vivian's here. Vivian, honey, sweetie, are you okay? Oh, fuck. Call an ambulance.
And that's a good jump scare because you're like, whoa, that little girl, we just saw her roller skating in a scene
and
before.
Now she's eating her mother.
And now she's got blood face and she's, yeah. And then next thing you know, she locks the bedroom door. She turns around. Her husband's gone zombie. And, it's a bad day for Sarah Polley.
Listen, I hate when that happens. I mean, I'm just to be honest. That'll ruin your day.
Costumes and zombie makeup.
It will bring you down.
Okay, costume and makeup aesthetic. So, like outside of narrative choices, right?
Yeah.
Many of the zombie film elements for the genre come from like the presentation of the zombies themselves, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you're automatically the first thing when these come out is like, okay, what kind of zombies are we dealing with? Are they like rotting flesh or are they missing chunks, right? Or they look more human with red eyes and sweaty skin?
Right.
What makes one stand out? And it does have a really big bearing though on the film, right? So what about that?
I think the first time we really saw that was in Romero's Dawn of the Dead in 78, I think it was.
In 1968, George Romero brought us Night of the Living Dead. It became the classic horror film of its time.
Not that room! Not that room!
Now, George Romero brings us the most intensely shocking motion picture experience for all times.
It gets up and kills. The people it kills get up and kill. This situation must be controlled before it's too late.
Yes.
And then you had another zombie dressed like a football player for some reason.
But again, reflecting us.
Reflecting us, yes. And I think he wanted to show people in these roles, a bus driver, a janitor.
Right.
You know,
that they're us.
Everyday people, right.
Yes.
And so I think that's where the costuming really kind of came in there. That was kind of a good play. I think, and going back to The Walking Dead, I think they do an actual pretty good job as the seasons move on, where the first season, the corpses are pretty fresh. You know, they're kind of like fresh dead people walking around, maybe a little grayed out, their flesh. But as the seasons go on, they really become very almost skeletal because everything's rotted away at this point, you know? So, yes. And let's talk about fighting armies of skeletons.
Let's do it.
Because you'd say, like, Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, right? Now, I would not consider that a true zombie film, but yet they do fight an army of skeletons.
Yeah.
Which I think is a callback to Ray Harryhausen's work in, like, Seven Voyages of Sinbad or Jason and the Argonauts, where there was, like, that stop-motion effects of just Sinbad would be fighting basically skeleton armies.
And the way they moved.
Right.
You know? Yeah,
right.
for sure.
But the idea of, fighting a foe that is so decayed they are basically just bones.
Yeah, because what do you do when you hit something like that?
They splash. They sound like bowling pins.
Yeah,
they just
but it keeps coming at you anyway, right? So
you know what other? Let me throw something else out there in this zombie genre. You know who did really good zombies was Game of Thrones. I don't know if you're familiar with if you watched that show, but they had the White Walkers, which were these like ice demons. And then they would make whites, which were basically zombies, like reanimated people who would be in their army. And the army of the whites was really terrifying in Game of Thrones because they would just do the bidding of whatever their leaders wanted them to do. They would fight until they were torn to pieces. They were scary. They were rotting. They had no sound or emotion, but yet they moved very quickly. You know, they were a frightening zombie. I thought the Game of Thrones, in a way, surpassed Walking Dead in their depiction of zombies on television.
It's got to be one of the top 5 things that when people, especially people who are zombie enthusiasts, when they unpack that movie, when they peel their eyes back, when they take the gummy, right? They're like, what is the zombie, right? So that's unbelievable. The last one,
open-ended endings.
Yeah.
Because
you always got to have a sequel, right?
Well, I think that's what, like, for whatever reason, zombie movies make terrific franchises. Like, you look at, like, Zombieland, Resident Evil, you know, The Walking Dead. Like, leaving things open-ended might leave open the possibility for, like, a franchise expansion, which we all know is about the money. And its core tenet, really, in the genre's horror roots. So what are some of those, like, what's the best franchise of it?
Ooh, well... Again, Romero always kind of expanded upon his next thing and kind of make it bigger and bigger, his universe. You know, from a little house, a little farmhouse in the first movie to a shopping mall in the second movie to basically a city, you know, a city of the dead.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say, but they always do kind of have that open-ended ending because, you know, I don't know if we got into this before, but... Zombie apocalypses are very bad, Paul. You cannot ever win a zombie apocalypse because of the numbers. It's a theoretical, exponential thing where there's so many more zombies than living people so quickly.
That's why you need a zombie bag.
Well,
you're not going to fight them. You're going to run.
Well, and where are you going to go?
Head for the hills.
You're going to head for the hills, but eventually, you know, everywhere will be dead people.
See, isn't that
know?
the cool thing about movies and, like, the genres? Like, to consider, you know, I think all of us in the back of our mind would like to consider ourselves complete badasses when the chips are down.
Sure.
Oh, you know, we're gonna be ready. We're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. But the reality is, like, I'm out. Like, probably the first 5 minutes of this thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm out.
It's probably not going to go well for me either.
I'm like Kramer and Friends. Pump my money down on the counter.
I'm out.
I got bounced in the first 5 minutes of the zombie apocalypse.
Right, I hear you. It would not be easy. Again, how do you survive a zombie apocalypse? I don't know. You're right. Head for the hills. Head for an island. I think they tried to do that in Dawn of the Dead. They got a boat and went to an island.
But zombies swim too. They swim. They get anyway like it's crazy.
Yeah.
All
they
right.
figure their way out.
So listen, that's awesome discussion.
Yes.
Tony T, do we not have the best guests on the FlixPop Radio?
This guy knows his shit.
He does know his
Well,
shit.
I know my zombies.
Yeah.
I know my zombies.
Well, you know what? There's no piece of content, Rob, that's out there that's
Right.
like this, where people are going to be able to, like, I feel like we're not just, Tony T and I here doing this podcast.
Right.
This is not just like some cursory thing. Like, this is a noble pursuit.
I hope
and,
so.
And the reason it's a noble pursuit, and this is not hyperbole in any way, shape, or form,
All right.
is that with Rob Errera, I'm actually exposing my audience to something that they're never going to come across, that they're never going to be able to talk to, that they're never going to be. I mean,
They didn't know they wanted it, Paul.
They didn't even know they wanted it.
They want it. They want it.
Now you can't leave. You know what I'm saying? Like, now you can. That's what it's like in this room.
Exactly.
The energy, the vibe.
Oh, it's a vibe.
Absolutely. Movie
This
Club
is
podcast.
the Sausage Hut is where it's happening.
Absolutely. This is
a good place.
Listen,
man. It's got a good vibe.
This is Tony T's place. We're like in his domain. So, and I'd be remiss if I didn't like thank him for letting us come.
Thank you, Tony T.
At a night and like just talk about nonsense. This is nonsense because in the grand
these are
scheme
zombies.
but
This is
in the
important.
grand scheme of things,
Right.
And we, of course, we kid around, we laugh. This is fun, so much fun. Matter of fact, I recommend it to anybody. If you just want to like have fun and like laugh and hang out with your buddies and everything, just get yourself a podcast. Get one of these.
That's cool.
And
Yeah,
do
sounds
this. But I feel like we're in such a time, and things are so serious that any chance you get to deviate your mind from, the more serious things in life. And like these films, they're fake. They're not real.
Well, they allow you to get into a terrible situation without really getting into a terrible
and
situation.
what you would do about it,
Right.
and you see the commercials out there, right? People are like, "Oh, hide behind the chainsaws." You see the commercial with the, and it seems like
They
a
make
horror movie.
terrible
Like
mistakes.
Romero said,
Yeah.
it's great to watch a zombie apocalypse and how stupid and what kind of stupid things all the characters do, like making decisions during it. But now I notice you have a lot of social media stuff. Do you know how to get the best bang for your buck on social media? You know how to achieve the best results?
I need some advice on that.
All right, I got to tell you right now. All right. So how do you achieve the best social media return on your investment? It might actually be the best kept secret in northern New Jersey. It's Officially Social. We've been happy with their results, and we would recommend them for your small or medium-sized business. Allison and her team will take great care of you and your business. Great client care and a great sense of what works online to earn new customers. Reach out to Allison and her team today at www.officiallysocial.com and tell her FlixPop Movie Club podcast sent you. So one of the things that happens before we're just right now in a couple minutes, we're going to get into these quotes, and then we're going to do our ranking, and then we're coming down the stretch here.
All right.
So let's talk quote. Let's talk about your writing career.
Okay.
A little bit, okay? And let's give some transparency out there. Rob and I at one point were roommates.
We lived housemates.
We lived in a house in Wayne. Okay, we had a band.
We did.
And we had a recording studio in the basement.
Sure.
And so it just goes to show you how little has changed in some ways.
Exactly.
But like and the name of the street was what?
High Street.
Is that really a stroke of irony?
Yeah.
The name of the street where the house was, where the band lived, was called High Street.
Yeah.
And the studio in the basement, and we decided that we would all the time our rule was if we were going to like record music, we would like smoke up.
Well, I thought
that's every time.
Not you guys.
Every time, like every piece of music that you would. Now I don't know that to be the case now with you guys in the Cruel Earth, and we're going to get into all that kind of stuff.
Okay,
but like at that time, like I know you differently than like most people like know you. I feel like right. Even though so much time has passed, and you're a writer. Yeah, and people may not know that he had a job where he wrote for Sherry Magazine, which is like a porn mag.
It was the world's hottest sex mag.
Tell us about the
That's
porn.
what we like.
It was the hottest sex mag, right?
It was the world's hottest sex mag. We were owned by the same company that ran High Society magazine,
right? Yes.
And Playgirl magazine was in our chain there.
I never saw that one.
Well, you never. I thought you were in that one.
I don't know. Go ahead.
You
Sorry.
send us those pictures every month. But and yeah, I gotta
I'm
say,
being outed here, Tony T.
and it was a fun job. I never got bored at work looking at pictures of naked ladies. And
So,
yeah,
listen,
it was a blast
the
job.
burning question that
Sure.
my audience has
Uh-huh.
is that, and again, this is like when I told people I was interviewing you,
Yeah.
you got to ask him this question.
Right.
In the back of these magazines, there are stories.
Right.
And the stories are pretty graphic.
They can be quite graphic.
Right. And they are disguised as letters from readers.
I never thought this would happen to me.
Until right. So the
pizza man.
Dispel the myth right now. Are those real letters, or did you write these? Did you write them?
The myth. The truth is most were written by professional erotica writers.
Oh, okay.
Whoa. So the pages that I had stuck together were fake, man?
Those were run by the real professionals.
Okay.
I can't unsee that now, Tony T. By the way, I cannot unsee what you just made me say.
Although we did get a lot of mail from prisoners who
Right.
loved our magazine, and sometimes they would write some interesting letters about their personal experiences. But yeah, for the most part, we would have professional writers.
But you did write some of them.
I wrote a few.
Now I know this for a reason. I know that you
Yes.
wrote some of them personally.
I did.
Because my name would be used in them.
I would use your name in them.
Because I'd be like the pool boy, or I think Jenna
Yeah.
Jameson came to town, and
Sure.
I picked her up in a cab,
And
and,
of
I
course,
took
Paul
her
B.
to
had
some
to-
hotel, and I banged. I don't know what happened, but I was living vicariously through Robert Errera
It's
these
true.
stories.
It was
So-
half the fun was incorporating people I knew into the actual stories. I figured, maybe not a lot of people were actually reading the stories in the magazine. It was more of a picture-based magazine.
Oh, I was reading them.
But Tony T, of course, got it for the articles.
But that's all I got it for, just to read the stories. And,
just to
the
see your own name in print.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Put it in your.
No, I'd run to the newsstand, Rob, because I'd be like, "Oh, did he use my name this time? And what were my travails this time?" And I was like, "Wow, I really did this. This is awesome."
That's right.
Yeah. All right.
This time you were a club owner who was auditioning young ladies for dancing jobs.
Oh boy.
Yes.
I was going to just tell you it's a family show, but it's not. It's not a family show. Rage on, brother. So
Well,
all right.
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that we set up a scenario and let nature. They would always kind of go in one direction. So
absolutely.
Trying to come up with something a little different. I remember writing a story once, Paul, where I had the protagonist, kept talking about his girlfriend and how sexy she was and loved her, and then he went and brought him to a friend's house, and the friend realizes that it's a blow-up doll that is actually his girlfriend, and it becomes very awkward. But I was able to get away with it for like 3/4 of the letter, just describing it as a regular hot young date and all the
But we know how they're all going to end. It's like those
Yes.
movies, the Christmas movies that are on TV, right? You just like the handsome guy comes back to town. He's a doctor.
They
He's
end-
in between relationships,
Exactly.
right? It's the same thing with the stories.
It's
in
a
the back.
much different ending than the zombie movie.
Well, listen,
that's for sure.
they're happier.
Yeah, they are.
Let's just say they're happier.
They are
endings.
happier.
All right, and now in addition to that, you're a musician.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. And I feel.
Well,
that's
Paul,
really how
you're
we
a
knew each
musician,
other.
too.
So yes, no, I'm a musician, but you know what? I don't have the mind that you have. I don't have the stick-to-itiveness like Tony T.
We just keep doing it.
Well, we're all storytellers.
Sure.
And we all tell the story in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with your band, The Cruel Earth, the song "Oh Pompton Lakes" that you wrote for us. Tell us and tell the listeners what it's like to have an assignment like that.
Well, I kind of like it because I'm getting very old, and I'm finding just writing songs about nothing or about some general topic, it's just too vague. I kind of like having something to wrap it around. So you gave me the topic of Pompton Lakes. You gave me a lot of history. You gave me a lot of names, a lot of things to look up. So it was all a matter of just kind of, like you said, telling the story with a little bit of a beat and a rhyme, and trying to find things that rhymed with Pompton Lakes and Albert Payson Terhune and
Yeah, right.
Flipside Records and kind of unique things to Pompton Lake. So I kind of like writing with some guidelines like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Tell us about the collaboration between you and Mark Sampella. Tony T, you know Mark Sampella, right?
Yeah, we all kind
of course.
Yeah, we all ran in the same circles, like
Yeah.
in high school. Mark lived with us in the house on High
Yep.
Street. It's actually his mom's house.
Right.
And Mark and I know Mark since I'm like, I don't know, like 11 years old or
Yeah.
whatever, right? And like even at that time, we were like, I remember like playing with his cat, putting the cat in the microwave, and like doing all kinds of weird shit like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And now it's like you guys work together. Mark's in Sarasota, Florida, after a really great career in like sound engineering and mixing and recording
Sure.
and stuff. What is it like to collaborate with somebody like interstate like that? Because this is a different time that we're in.
It really is, and it's of course I love it because it allows me to kind of collaborate with Mark. We don't have to necessarily be in the same room together.
Right.
So this kind of started on your impetus, really. I think you asked us to work on a song for one of your films, maybe a Butler film or one of your movies, and this was during the pandemic, and we started, we were home, and like everybody, so exchanging emails. Hey, let me send you this MP3 file of this bass line I wrote. And then he would put a guitar line to it, throw some drums on it, and like, hey, we're suddenly writing songs. So, it's been really fun writing. It's probably not as fun as hanging in the same room and jamming together.
No, because that was always the best, man.
That was the best.
Yeah.
This is probably more focused, though, because, you can kind of, actually, here's my part, you do what you want with it, rather than, heaven forbid, we smoke a joint and then just jam through a bunch of head songs for 25 minutes.
That's what Tony T does.
Yeah.
March 15th, you can see that at bars.
I saw that. Yeah, no doubt. He likes to stand in back of people, too. He's just like jamming away. I love that. I love that, too. Like, I wish I could play like a guitar and like go out there like you guys. And
The
like,
bass is the best.
Well, you guys have been doing it for so
Yeah.
long. You're really like our experts. I can't even like right now, like my hands are a little cold. I can't even imagine if I was a guitar player,
Right.
if I could even do it anymore at the tender age of 55, like
you.
I am. But
Right.
like so it's the name of your
The Cruel Earth.
The Cruel Earth. Okay, you
Now-
guys consider yourselves recording artists,
I consider
or would you ever
ourselves-
like play out like what?
I think someday we might play out, but I think we're almost like a Steely Dan, where we're just like a studio band at this point.
So what? You're
And-
like a rock, like a yacht rock act with like with Chevy Chase playing drums. Like
I have a hard
that
time-
kind of Steely Dan.
Yeah, well,
or like what?
I would love that. I mean, that's awesome music, but I would say, we've done it. We've done a little bit of everything. We put out a country album last year.
Wow.
We put out. We're working on a hardcore metal album.
Right.
Our first album was this kind of rock concept album called From Seeds No More Than Dust, and it was about these group of plants who were then kicked out of a garden, and they need to get their way, trying to earn their way back into this garden.
It's like the trees
of earthly
I love it,
delights.
man.
I love that too, man. It's great.
Perhaps it's some kind of Garden of Eden reference. Who's to say?
Right.
The villain is the bunny, because
Right.
the bunny is the villain of the vegetables and fruits, right? Even though you think the bunny is so cute. But anyway, From Seeds No More Than Dust, we came up with these album, 35 songs, tells a whole story, and we wanted to come up with a name that kind of reflected this earthy kind of concept, so we came up with The Cruel Earth. And then the next project was writing a song for each of the minerals on the periodic table.
I saw that. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Rob, did you see this?
So we did like 18
I mean, Tony, you
albums.
see
I
this?
haven't. No, I gotta
You gotta-
check that out, man.
Tell him about this.
So, there's 118 elements on the periodic table, broken up into, 18 families maybe.
It's a lot of music, dude.
It is a lot of music.
That's a
It
big
is lot.
library.
Yeah. That took us probably a year and a half to
Wow,
kind of
man.
work
Where can
on
I
that.
get that stuff?
You
man?
can get that on SoundCloud or what are they? Spotify or YouTube.
You can also see a
Music
lot of
or-
YouTube.
Yeah,
if you
Apple
if you just
Music,
do a
it's all
search
up
on
there.
The Cruel Earth.
Yeah, and then ever since then, we've released a few different albums in different genres, but pretty much every Saturday night we put out a new song.
Wow.
So
and this is you and Mark virtually?
Yeah, me and Mark virtually.
That's
yeah.
great, man. The wonders of the interweb. Right?
Isn't it
I love
awesome?
it. I
Like
love
this
it.
was not possible.
No, it was not
even like
possible.
15 years ago.
So maybe
like,
that's kind of we had to wait for the time to be right to
Yeah.
reconverge. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I agree. Good
Well,
for you, man.
but yeah, it's cool.
That's a
There's
real
so much-
treat, man. I'd like to hear some of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Tone. Thank you. It's a good time. You know
So-
how it is. Great music's fun. So.
Yeah.
Now, but the goals are different.
Yeah.
Because when we were younger, and I know Tony will agree with this, I know you'll agree with this, and if Mark was in this room, I know he'd agree with it,
Yes.
is that we were all willing to live in a van and eat peanut butter for dinner just until we made it.
Right, sure.
So everything we did was really geared towards trying to make it, right? Trying to get that record contract, trying to get discovered, right?
You wanna get signed. That
Pie
was the
in
big
the
thing.
sky. Yo, let's get signed, right?
Let's
All
get
this kind of
signed.
stuff. Now you
Yeah.
do these things for your own indulgent pleasure.
Yeah.
And I think that while the odds of us being discovered still
Yeah.
are not zero,
no,
it's probably against all odds.
Oh, yeah.
And you're doing it for your enjoyment. What about that?
Pretty much. Well, you know what? I think I found you almost have to always do it for your enjoyment. And, you know, we did it for money. We played,
we did.
Come On Light My Fire because that's what people want to hear or whatever, you know what I mean?
Born to Be Wild.
Oh, how many...
Freebird!
How many Bush tunes did we
Oh,
play?
forgot about it.
So
Yeah.
many Bush
I've
songs.
personally played Sympathy for the Devil more than the Stones.
Even you roll your eyes when they say sympathy for the devil.
Yeah, right.
And there's always
Exactly.
some knucklehead in the front row going, Freebird, Stairway to Heaven, right?
exactly.
You're like rolling your eyes.
And you just go with it, you know?
Yeah.
But you know what? That's fun too, because then you're making... Musicians are like the last of the last bit of magic I think that humans have. Musicians, they create something out of nothing. You have dead air and you start singing, or you start playing a piano, or you start drumming, and that kind of summons a vibe and it creates something literally out of nothing. And I think, hey, that's why chicks dig us so much, because we're magic. We're magic men. And I think I think that's why musicians as a whole, male or female, are so attractive, because they have that ability to, dream something, pull something out of thin air, literally.
Chicks dig the singer.
Well, of course they do.
That's all I
Of
can say.
course.
That's all I can say
Me
about
and
that.
Tony, the bass player.
Forget about it. But for me, it's therapy, man. Right?
Yeah, right?
Yep.
You know, I keep doing it just to kind of clear the head at this point.
Yeah, I think it's good. Plus, it's good. It's like a, I don't know. It's almost like a type of prayer or something, a ritual that you do.
Yeah.
That, anything, whether it's jogging or hiking or, I don't know, stamp collecting,
Yeah.
something that, like, whatever it is that
You're
eases
right.
your soul. But music's different, though, because you're bringing it to others,
Yeah.
and you're creating something that others can bask in. So that's cool.
Yeah, I agree.
So I brought the song with us, so we're going to play it.
Oh, cool.
Is that cool with you? We're going to play Old Pompton Lakes.
I think that's okay with me.
All right, go ahead. Let's listen in.
All right. Oh, Pompton Lakes.
Aaron Skyler rode in, said this valley's great. Let's call it Pompton, and these are Pompton Lakes. Hess head down to Flipside Records and pick us out some tunes. Something that sure to please Albert Pace and Tayon. George Washington slept here twice. Joe Louis trained for prize fights. Ben Franklin burned down, but we have Lidl now. Meet me at the pond, oh, we're heading to the pipeline tonight. Meet me at the pond, oh, we're heading to the pipeline tonight. Sister Christine built the Outlook a few blocks from the lake. If you walk behind Pompton Reformed Church, you can find her grave. Esteemed William Colfax guarded our first president, and good Martin Ryerson was another famous resident. George Washington slept here twice. Joe Louis trained for prize fights. Ben Franklin burnt down, but we've got Lidl now. pond, oh, we're heading to the pipeline tonight. Meet me at the pond, oh, we're heading to the pipeline tonight. Oh, Pompton Lakes. Oh, Pompton Lakes. Oh, Pompton Lakes. Oh, Pompton Lakes are home. Go Cardinals. The pond, oh, we're headed to the pipeline. Meet me at the pond, oh, we're headed to the pipeline. Meet me at the pond, oh, we're headed to the pipeline. Meet me at the pond, oh, we're headed to the pipeline. At the pond, oh, we're headed to the pipeline tonight.
What's it like even to hear the song even now after whatever amount of time that's gone by? It's been maybe a year or so.
Yeah. And it's weird because
it's a great tune, man.
Thanks,
it's
man.
Pretty
Thanks.
cool, right?
Once we get to, I don't know, Mark and I are kind of a mindset where once we actually release a song, then it's kind of in the rearview mirror, and we hardly ever hear him again after that. So, yeah, it's kind of cool hearing it. Sounds great. Coming through the old Sausage Hut studio speakers here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice and loud.
Yeah, you got some nice speakers here, bro.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so let's plow through some more movie stuff.
Okay.
I'm going to give you some quotes.
All right.
Okay, and I want you to give me the guess of what the quote's from, what movie's from. You already mentioned the first one. You took it out of my mouth already. Is they're coming to get you, Barbara.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Look, where there's one of them now.
What
Oh,
movie?
Johnny, stop it. You're being ignorant.
What movie?
That's the original Night of the Living Dead.
Absolutely, Night of the Living Dead.
Poor Barbara and Johnny. They're trying to go to the cemetery to put some flowers on their grandparents' grave. Next thing you know, some shambling zombies after you.
This one's I gotta know that you're probably gonna know this one.
Mm-hmm.
Tony T, if you know it, blurt it out. When there is no room left in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
Yeah, I don't know that one, dude.
Oh, that's the Dawn of the Dead all the way.
Yes.
That's a Dawn of...
You know...
And they redid that also. They did that in 78's Dawn of the Dead, I think.
Yes.
And then they reused that line in the remake of
And it's also quoted by other, like, directors and stuff.
Yes.
When they, like, describe the genres or they just have fun with it.
Yep.
Okay. You know what the worst part about this whole thing is? The smell.
Let's see. Is that... You want to take a guess, Tony T?
That is as well Dawn of the Dead.
Is it? Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay. The only good zombie is a dead zombie.
Oh, boy. Is that Zombieland, maybe?
You're close.
Oh, Zombieland double
Tony
tap.
T.
No.
Tony, that is Shaun of the Dead.
Okay.
And then this one as well, You Got Red on You.
Tough ones, man. Tough ones.
They're not that tough. I mean, if we're doing a contest or whatever, but that's Shaun of the Dead as well.
That's also Shaun of the Dead.
What other quotes can you think of, like just off the top of your head, that are like the ones that people out there when you hear it instantly, like if you look at the action thriller genre, we're gonna need a bigger boat, right?
Yeah, sure.
You know what movie you're in? I'll be back, right? That. That's what movie quotes do for you, and that's what. When you hear them, they bring you back to a place, because with a lot of these movies, it's not just what you remember about it; it's how they made you feel, like in the moment.
Sure, absolutely.
What are some that are iconic for you?
Well, you got to go with again in the original Night of the Living Dead. I guess he's a sheriff or something at the end, where he's like, "Oh, you could beat them or burn them. They go up pretty quick." And he's like, and he also another famous line that he says, he's like, "Oh, they're dead. They're all messed up."
From the land of the obvious. I mean, yes. But
so again, working with low budget, that was probably some local dude who worked in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely,
and,
he was selling cigarettes in the video store.
Yeah, and you know what? He had a suit that looked good for the camera, so they were like, "Hey, you got 10 minutes to shoot this scene."
So funny.
So yeah.
All right. How about then? Let's look at some of these films. I want to give you a chance to give our listeners that your top 5 for the genre.
Okay.
So out of these top 5 that you're going to give us, there's got to be one or two maybe that they haven't seen or they haven't seen in a long time. So that's really the purpose of this, is we want to kind of jog your mind a little bit. We want to give you a chance more to celebrate the genre in a personal way. There's no better way to do that than to actually go back and watch a film.
You want to give me one?
I want to give you one. I'm gonna my top 5. I'm gonna go from 5 to 1.
Okay.
Number 5.
It's World War Z.
All right.
Seeing Brad Pitt do that, and
Sure.
the concept of the movie and the intermingling of science fiction and as the reason, and
it's a modern zombie.
Yeah, moderns.
They're fast. And it's kind of like
I love that.
And I kind of like the scene where it opens where they're in like a city and he's trying to get out.
They're
with his
getting
family,
on the walls.
Right. Yeah.
You're like, what the hell is going on with that?
They move like insects. It's amazing.
Unbelievable. So that would be my one. Give me your number 5.
Number 5.
I'm gonna give you 5. There's a movie called Savage Land. Savage Land came out, I think, in 2015. Very low budget movie about a town on the Texas border that suddenly has a terrible crime one night, and everybody in this small town is murdered, and they wind up accusing the one survivor, who happens to be this migrant worker from Mexico, who happened to be an amateur photographer, and as he was running through the town that night, he was taking pictures of things that he saw. And this movie, Savage Land, does amazing things with a low budget and with still black and white photos that really capture the story very well. It's told in like a fake documentary style. So it's also got these, it reminds me a little bit of the original Night of the Living Dead in that it's got the black and white graininess that you're peering into the screen to figure out what's going on.
Right. Okay.
But it's also got some themes of immigration and migration. So yeah, it might be pertinent for these times.
Okay.
Savage Land.
Let me give you 4.
All right.
Number 4.
And ironically enough, my fourth is a rom-zom-com.
Okay.
Is that a thing?
I guess so.
Is that a thing, Tony T?
There's a movie called
a rom-zom-com.
Is it Warm Bodies?
It's Shaun of the Dead.
Okay. There's a romance in there. Yeah.
There's a little romance in there.
That's always nice.
Comedy. I'm trying to really rank these 5 and to give each one a fairness to say the majority of people, maybe this is how it fits in.
Yep.
And so I also like, I like the 90s aspect of it, right? And it's really important in the genre.
That scene where they're going through his albums, don't throw that one. It's
yeah, exactly. And then the scenes in the bar and
it's
really just a great thing. So give me your number 4.
Number 4.
All right, I'll go a comedy one. This is a Japanese film called One Cut of the Dead.
Yes.
Now, One Cut of the Dead starts out as a really cheesy Italian zombie movie and ends up being a British farce, all told through the lens of a Japanese cinema. So it's really weird, but it's not. It's actually funny and it's heartwarming and it's got a beautiful kind of. The whole film is kind of a testament to filmmakers or musicians or artists or anybody who tries to create something, particularly somebody who's hired to create something and has to create it within a corporate framework and is still trying to do something artistically sound. Anybody who's ever been in that position, theater kids, you'll love this film. It's awesome. One Cut of the Dead. It's really great.
All right, excellent.
Number 3.
Number 3 for me, I don't have too much of an explanation other than to say like this really like reset the genre.
Yeah.
Like those are the films to me that rank very high, or the ones that like shake it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's 28 Days Later, Danny Boyle.
Okay.
It's just a film to me. Again, has that sci-fi,
Yep.
science fiction, thing
Yeah.
involved with
and
it
that
as well.
really introduced the fast zombie to the world.
The quick, fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that always, I don't know who inspired who on this, but The Walking Dead kind of starts with Rick waking up in a hospital and
Yes.
just like, what happened to the world?
Yes.
And that's sort of similar to the 28 Days Later, right? He kind of wakes up in a hospital.
Who's your 3?
Number 3.
My 3 would be Dawn of the Dead remake. Zack Snyder's remake.
2004?
2004.
Okay.
Now, I think it's similar. I was a toss-up between that and 28 Days Later because they're both of the same time. I think Zack Snyder's is a little more gory, which I kind of liked. It also has a really good cast of characters, and it's shot in this style that has become very annoying, but it's very fast cuts, fast edits, almost like a music video
I was
style.
just about to say, it's like a music video from like
from like the 90s.
early 90s.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's like a swinging light in the room and it's like everything's shaking around.
That's
Alice in
totally
Chains,
right.
Whatever. Okay. All right, number 2.
Number 2.
For me, is ironically enough Dawn of the Dead.
Right.
But it's the 1978 version.
There you go.
To me, that's really a second classic. I think you know where I'm going with my number 1 even.
I think
that's
our number
that's
ones
my number 2.
may
What's your
converge.
Number 2.
My number 2 would be The Train to Busan.
Whoa.
The Train to Busan is a great modern horror movie and really kind of keeps the zombie genre going.
Wow.
It's kind of a toss between that and Dawn for me.
I
for 2
thought
and
that
3.
I thought Train to Busan is underrated.
Oh, totally underrated.
And
Yeah.
these films that come from that part of the world,
Yeah.
they have like it's like looking through a kaleidoscope, like in a
Indeed.
way.
I got to say, I've been watching a lot of South Korean horror films because, The Grudge, all that kind of stuff came from that area. And some of it's pretty damn good. There's a movie called The Wailing that's excellent. Excellent movie, The Wailing. Not a zombie movie, but a horror movie. But very well thought out, well acted. It's great. Oh, there's another great movie. Also not a zombie. I know, wait. Let's finish our list.
Yes.
Number 1.
And if maybe we agree on it, but to me, it absolutely, after you're doing this breakdown and this analysis of it, this is really, to me, the one it has to be. It's Night of the Living Dead, 1968, Romero. It was just such an important film for the genre.
We are in agreement. Our number ones have a line.
So basically what we have here is we have both of us, number 1, Night of the Living Dead. Number 2, I have Dawn of the Dead, 78. Rob has Train to Busan.
Right.
Then I have 28 Days Later. You have Dawn of the Dead, 2004, Zack Snyder.
Right.
Then I have Shaun of the Dead at 4. You have One Cut of the Dead.
One Cut of the Dead.
Which is crazy. That's a crazy selection there at 4. I think that's
really
really
good.
high.
You'll love
that
it.
might be the one that we identify that maybe
Okay.
our watchers and listeners should go and find and watch.
And you can find in the other one. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, then number 5 for myself, World War Z, and 10, Savage Land. Another pretty.
Savage Land.
You've got a pretty nice, thoughtful list here. But I have to say, Tony T, tell me if I'm wrong. The consensus pick for number 1 film in the zombie horror genre in the history of the genre is
Number 1.
Drum roll, please.
Ding, 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 ding.
Night of the Living Dead. Give me some honorable mention. What did we leave out?
All right. Well, there's a great movie that came out in 2023 called When Evil Lurks. It's from Argentinian. Anyway.
Like the red shrimp.
Exactly.
They're really good, man.
They are delicious.
You guys ever eat the Argentine red shrimp?
They are
All
very
right, sorry,
good.
man. Sorry, it's late.
It's
Go
okay.
Ahead. Go ahead,
He's hungry, man.
I'm all hungry. Look at the shrimp here.
The
but-
edible's kicking in.
The edibles. I'm like, we're in the diner, right? Go ahead, Rob.
So When Evil Lurks, it's not necessarily zombie, but there are reanimated corpses and there are people getting eaten. So you know, it's got those zombie elements to it. Excellent movie, When Evil Lurks.
Okay.
Rec, this movie called REC, short for record. I think it's from Spain. Again, more demonic possession, but there are a lot of zombie elements to it. And that one's fun because it's like found footage film. And it happens kind of in real time.
I love that trope, man. I love it.
And it's not, and it's fun because it's happens in real time. These reporters go to cover a problem at a apartment building, and next thing you know, there's the apartment building sealed off by the police because it's quarantined. There's somebody in there who's got something wrong with him, a touch of the zombieism,
right?
And and then all heck ensues.
Yes.
So
I have my honorable mention. I guess would it would have to be The Walking Dead, like the TV series.
I agree. I would say
like
first couple seasons especially were excellent on that show.
Like the scene where like Rick is like on the horse and he's in the traffic is like piled up on the left, and he's like just the horse is walking into town.
Yeah,
you're like, what the hell is going on with this?
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of reminding me like when I saw that, and he like woke up in the hospital. He looked out, and the whole entire world has devolved into a complete mess.
Yeah,
it was like hearing Nirvana's "Smells Like Teen Spirit," where I said to myself, "Everything's going to change."
Right. Okay.
Everything's now different.
Sure.
And that's The Walking Dead to me. They're definitely that.
They definitely did that. And again, it was harder to find that kind of gore, widespread gore.
Right.
But yeah, I can't say I don't like it. It's The Walking Dead. It's great.
Yeah.
Characters are fun, especially in those early seasons. The governor, those kind of guys.
Yep.
Negan's kind of got his own thing going on.
Cool weapon.
He's got a cool
There's
weapon.
There's no cooler weapon all across the entire zombie apocalyptic
I would be hard-pressed to
genre
find that out.
That thing he was like carrying around and clubbing people upside the head with.
Speaking of which.
Yeah, give me some cool weapons. Bro.
All right, there's another low-budget zombie movie called The Battery. And it's a battery because
that ranks high in a lot of lists, man.
Okay, you know why? It's a low-budget movie, but it's a battery referring to a pitcher and a catcher, the battery of baseball team.
Yeah.
And they're two guys stuck in their car while these zombies are just kind of hoarding around their car. And, again, limited budgets, limited set, limited cast. But, good writing can kind of bring all these things together.
Overcome all these things,
right? But that reminds me of that movie because a baseball bat plays heavily into the battery as well.
We got any honorable mention for you, Tony T, in this genre?
I'm just enjoying the conversation, man.
It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We're like kind of getting to the end here.
Yeah, I'm seeing if I got anything else here.
What else you got for me? What do you want? Is there anything you want to tell the audience in terms of what you got going on, or
again, always,
where they can get your books and
I'd
music
say
and everything?
Every Saturday night, the Cruel Earth drops a new single and with an original video. So we go to our The Cruel Earth YouTube channel, and you can find out our music there.
Right.
Plus Spotify, wherever. Again, I got a bunch of books. Autism Dad. I wrote 3 books about raising a child with autism. My son, he's the coolest. I wrote some nonfiction like Becker Comes Alive, which I don't know if I even mentioned it, but John Becker was my neighbor, which is kind of what inspired me to write this story about the Delairs and their venture into the music business and the horror business. They kind of collide, rock and roll and horror.
Can I give a testimonial?
Yeah.
So, look, I'm biased because, Rob's a good friend, but you truly are a talented guy. And
thanks, man.
So a couple of works of yours stood out. I'm not even looking, I don't even, just off the top of my head, there's a story you wrote. I'm just trying to give you guys a sense and context inside Rob's mind. Is he wrote a short story, and it was called Aren't the Cliffs Romantic at Night?
Okay.
Do you remember this?
Not so much, but
well,
go ahead.
Let me refresh your memory. The story, he doesn't even remember it.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean, you learn a lot just
It's
by
a-
that, right? Because like you've forgotten
more than I've written. Right?
You know what I mean? Like that you've
Exactly.
written, and certainly for me, it's the same way. But the story's actually about the guy and the girl, and they're on the cliffs, and he pushes her off.
Of course, yeah.
So,
All right.
and I realized right then and there, I'm like, this guy, like, it's not like the whole like the brain doesn't work exactly like everybody else's.
I hear you. Here, let me. I'll tell you an untoward story about zombies.
Yeah.
So, it's 1997, and I decided to write this short story that's about Jesus and his disciples, and Jesus in the Bible brings back Lazarus from the dead. Everybody knows about Lazarus, but there's this other story in the Bible where him and his disciples are going into this town. And everybody's coming towards Jesus because they want him to heal him. And this guy comes and says, Jesus, my daughter's really sick. You got to come to my house. They go to the house, and the daughter's already dead. But Jesus says, no, your daughter is just sleeping, and she raises from the dead. And, of course, I turned that Bible story into a horror story because what would be scarier than, like, having people come back from the dead and and they seem to, and I think Jesus would scare people that he had that ability to do so. Anyway, my, of course, twisted take on it was that the people that Jesus brings back are perpetually horny and hungry.
Right.
So they just want to have sex and eat.
There's no two better things than that. Let's be honest. They
Hey,
had something
you know
right.
what? If you were dead and you came back, those are living, fleshy things.
They really are.
Sex and food.
That's human
you know what I
shit
mean?
right there. Yeah.
That's what makes you. That's what separates us. Well, it doesn't even separate us
It
from
doesn't.
animals.
I saw one of your videos. Showed me every example.
Exactly.
And the Cruel Earth, by the way.
So
yeah,
I wrote this story and I decided to give it the clever title of "Zombie Jesus Sex Slaves," which wound up not,
very non-controversial.
You know what?
Very straight.
I
line,
figured if I could put out a controversial book, it might garner some sales. It did not garner any sales. So I changed the book. I changed the story back to its original title, which was Matt 9:18, because in the Bible this takes place in Matthew chapter 9, verse 18. So I changed it to Matt 9:18. I put it in an anthology. I forgot about it. About 10 years later, I get a job teaching in a Catholic school, and I'm a new teacher there. I'm like, yeah, kids, I used to do a bit of writing in my past, but now I'm focusing on a teaching career. Wouldn't you know it, these 7th graders who wouldn't do their homework would Google me, find the cover of Zombie Jesus Sex Slave, which Mark Zampella designed for me, and it shows a Jesus-like hand and then a zombie crawling out of a grave,
Oh my God,
holding a giant dildo.
That's worse than the Spinal Tap album. That's worse than that. Is it not?
Wouldn't you know? I had to get called down to Sister Marie's office, the principal. Now, let me tell you something.
I'm mortified.
Let me tell you something, Tony T. Let me tell you something, Paul. You want to feel young again? Take the worst thing that you did and then have to explain it to
a nun,
your old, pastor or your a priest or something, or even like your parents' friends or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I felt like I was about 10 years old, sitting in the principal's office, having to explain how Jesus brought people back from the dead, and they got real horny.
Now listen.
Yeah.
Listen. Everybody in their life, invariably, Tony
Yes.
T knows what I'm talking about. Everybody that's listening knows. You come to a part in your life where, you realize, you've made it.
That's it.
Is this the moment? What is it again? What's the title of it again?
Well,
Jesus.
It was called Zombie Jesus
Sex
Slaves.
Right.
I wound up changing it back to Matthew 9:18. You can still get it. Order it on Amazon. In Sensual Nightmares is the name of the collection that it's in. And
people, we deserve to pay the money for what's in this guy's head. I'm telling you right now, this is my contention, Tony T. This is my thesis for this show.
That show, I just wanted to show that I wrote a zombie tale that
Right.
wound up getting me fired from a job.
Yeah.
So I'm committed to the zombie genre.
But it got you an appearance on this show
It did.
with
It got me
Tony
an appearance
T.
on
He's
this too.
famous.
That's true. He is.
He's famous.
Absolutely.
Can we see that in your Wikipedia?
I don't know if I have that, but I'd be happy to add that. Feel free to edit it in there.
That's like the houses never painted. How do you not have a Wikipedia page?
That's true. I don't know.
And can you get me one?
Yeah, exactly.
And Tony T definitely has to have one. That's good.
At least the Sausage Hut.
This is good Google stuff, like good search engine stuff. Okay,
absolutely. So
all right,
anyway,
so
thank you, man, for letting me share that
listen,
story,
dude. Thank you for being by Sausage Hut Studios with Tony T. And we enjoyed having you, Tony. I know I speak for Tony, but this has been like just stupid, awesome, ridiculous, and you'll be able to Google for all of time this podcast that we just did about the zombie apocalypse job. And I'm going to tell you, anyone, I'll put it up against any one of them. I haven't even edited it yet. Put it up against anyone out there, okay?
All right.
In terms of analyzing a genre and having you do it, it was really great. Thanks for stopping by,
man.
Rob Errera.
Only one man's opinion.
Buy his books,
yes.
Okay? Pay for what is inside this man's head.
Thank you,
FlixPop
Paul.
Radio Movie Club Podcast is brought to you by Rebecca Ecker, estate planning attorney, officially social, Silk City Films, the FlixPop Radio Show on WGHT and WTBQ every Saturday morning at 9 a.m., the Reset with Stephanie Shore podcast, as well as Tony T's Roadshow. All right, next we have Damon Manx.
Oh,
Did you know Damon Manx is coming by?
That's going to be
You
fun.
should come hang with us when we do it.
Damon Manx is a good writer,
Damon Manx is a great, he's got the Ojolocks, and he's got
some really good stories.
He's writing The Deacon right now. So
he's got a story called Abigail.
Yes,
Not to be
Abigail.
confused with the movie Abigail about a ballerina vampire girl.
Yes, and he did
which is fun.
He did time in prison.
He did.
But he rehabilitated himself. It's a really great story. Until next week, talk to you soon. Tony T, take care.
All right.
See you, Tony T.
Love you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Love you too, brother.